Turn on the microphone. Hello, good morning. How are you doing? It is 5:39 in the morning. My goodness. Why am I doing this so early today? How you doing? Well, it's Thursday, February 6th, and right now here in North Texas, we're in the mid 60s. That's going to change, but looks like quite an active pattern for the northern half of the United States. That's where the cold air is. We're going to get colder on the west coast, but we're going to have a couple storms tracking mainly north, although that will head a little bit further south in time. We'll show you here in just a second. Hazards for this morning. Yeah, a lot going on from the Great Lakes up into the northeast. Some ice happening there in Pennsylvania. I mean, lots of winter weather advisories here. Even some flooding concerns for Kentucky into West Virginia. And then we see ice storm warnings for parts of Pennsylvania, even into Virginia, West Virginia, and back into Kentucky as well. You get into the northern plains, upper Midwest. We're watching out for winter storm watch. And further to the north in North Dakota, winter weather advisories, also parts of Minnesota, even a blizzard warning there for the UP of Michigan. And the west coast, very active. This is a really active weather pattern that we're in. And so for the Pacific Northwest, lots of winter weather advisories, getting into the interior as well. And then in the mountains of southern Oregon, northern California, and the Sierra Nevada, winter storm warnings, just copious amounts of snow. Even some flood watches for the San Francisco area, and some wind for Nevada into Utah and southern Idaho. So again, pretty active along the northern tier of the United States. Here are the temperatures this morning at 5 a.m. Central, with teens and 20s for my friends in western Iowa, while we're in the mid-60s here in North Texas, north of Dallas. And those 60s are through Louisiana into the southeast, the mid-south. I mean, 61 up there, and is that Lexington or Louisville? One of the two. and 50s and 60s for Georgia into Florida. But you get up into, North Dakota, Montana. We've got a few below zero readings here, and also up in the northeast. That's -9, I think, for Portland, Maine. Surface today, you see the icing continuing, or at least a possibility for the eastern Great Lakes into the northeast. It's thunderstorms, maybe mid-south and mid-Atlantic, some rain. And then a series of storm systems for the Pacific Northwest. Heavy snow, Oregon, California, Nevada, maybe a little bit of ice, southern Idaho, rain or snow otherwise in the northwest, depending on elevation and location. And rain in California getting all the way down into possibly San Diego. Tomorrow, rain continues in California and a little bit colder further north in the Pacific Northwest, so rain or snow even for the lower elevations of the Willamette Valley and along the coast of Oregon and Washington. Heavy snow, Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, as that storm track is going to be along the northern tier of the U.S. Even some wind issues, critical fire danger for central, eastern New Mexico. And then we see our chance of rain continuing on the cool side of the cold front for the mid-south into the mid-Atlantic. 48-hour precipitation shows that heavy rain, Kentucky into West Virginia, even parts of the mountains of eastern Tennessee. So we're 1.5 inches here, maybe a little more. And then really heavy rain for northern California along the coast, all the way down through the central coast and getting towards the LA basin. And then in the mountains of California, the liquid equivalent is 2.5, 3, 4 inches, which translates to 2, 3, 4 feet of snow in the Sierra Nevada. And it's a good 1 to 2 for northern California, southern Oregon, and the mountains of Idaho, and around Yellowstone Park in Wyoming, mountains of Utah, and into Montana. And then we see our blizzard warning, remember, up there in the UP of Michigan, so quite a bit of snow up there, and some snow for the northeast. By the time we get into Thursday, okay, I did label that right, we still have rain or snow Pacific Northwest. Wait, is that right? Today's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. This is Saturday, which I did not change this map apparently, because that is labeled as Thursday. But we're going to continue with cold air for the Pacific Northwest as that colder air sinks south. So lots of rain and snow for Washington, Oregon, Idaho, into Northern California, parts of Nevada. It's kind of crazy. All right, let's get into the European here, starting at 6 a.m. this morning. And there you see your ice for Pennsylvania into New York State. And then it turns to rain, and heavy rain at that, for West Virginia into Kentucky. So that's happening right now. And that's why we have those flood watches in place. And as we go through time, that skedaddles out of here. You see the blue lines, the 540. Staying on the northern half of the United States is where the colder air is, the warmer air further south. Scattered storms, Tennessee, Kentucky. This gets us into Thursday night tonight. And then snow moving into Oregon, Northern California, and of course the Sierra Nevada getting heavy snow with pretty heavy rains along the California coast. That system moving inland now as we get into tomorrow, 6 a.m. We see the snow spreading along the northern plains and into the upper Midwest, and then eventually the Great Lakes. So let me back up one. So this is Saturday morning, morning. And the northern half of Iowa getting snow, where I lived just a couple weeks ago here in Harlan, right on the edge. But man, it's been a dry winter so far, and I don't know if that's going to change. It's going to be close. Then as we get back to the west, we see the rain and snow for Oregon and Northern California. So this system travels along the northern U.S., bringing a little bit more ice for Pennsylvania possibly, snow, heavy at times, for southern New York, northern PA, and into the northeast, some heavy snow as we get into the weekend. So this is Saturday night into Sunday morning. And then that system leaves and we hold on to the cold air, again, kind of half and half. Northern half of the country cold, southern half of the country warm. And, even some cooler air will be sinking further south on the west coast. But we do see that cold air starting to seep pretty far south or further southward as we go into time. So this is early next week, and we're starting to see some snow now for Nebraska moving into Kansas, although the run here ends. But some further south snow into the central plains as we get into mid next week, with some thunderstorms here in North Texas into Oklahoma and moving into the mid-south. And here are those trends. So as we get further into the second week of February, we're going to see that colder air sink further south in the plains. And so Kansas, look out for a snowstorm, maybe a second one after that. Iowa, you're either too far south or too far north for these storms, but it's going to be cold. And the warm stuff is going to stay in the southeast. This is the 11th through the 15th. As we go further out in time, the warm air starts to push further to the north out of the south. And so looks like we're going to get right back to the warmth here in Texas, for example. Southeast never will cool off from all of this. But the northern plains hanging on to winter. That's how it works up north. Precipitation-wise, pretty good news here for the 11th through the 15th. Really the whole country with a good chance of above average precipitation. And then some of that rain in the plains on the wane as we get further into the second week of February. So storm track north, cold air north, still dealing with some ice in Pennsylvania, and then maybe some heavy snow coming to the northeast, and certainly for the mountains of the northwest, and maybe even mixing in or changing to snow at some of the lower elevations in the northwest. And that's my report for this morning, and I'm sticking to it. Have yourself a great Thursday. Friday Eve makes the weekend seem closer. Lord willing and the creek don't rise. We'll see you tomorrow right here on the Weather Mic.